Lake listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Season 5 for our Grow, Thrive, Inspire podcast, a podcast created to help you grow both personally and professionally, to thrive with clear goals and visions, and to inspire others. Whether you're a full-time resident here at Lake of the Ozarks or a visitor or hope to be either one in the future, we think that you're going to enjoy this episode as much as you do. So today, I could not be more excited for the guest that we have on the show today. This man was a licensed real estate broker for over 26 years, named top 25 most influential leaders of the real estate industry, was a former VP of Trulia and Zillow, and a former president and CEO of Century 21. He also hosts the Good Morning Remax show and Keeping It Real. He's now the president and CEO of Remax LLC and a good friend of mine, Mr. Nick Bailey. Nick, I cannot thank you enough for being on the show today. I literally cannot believe that you're here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome to be with you. And I just want to know one thing before we get started.
Of course.
Are the residents and all of you tired of the show Ozark and the Lake of the Ozarks connection? Do you just get tired of hearing about it?
You know, honestly, I don't. And believe it or not, I've lived here forever and I have not watched the show, to be honest, but we get it all the time.
I'm sure you do. Well, I'm a fan favorite and I love your area. I've visited many times and played on the water, and it's awesome to be with you.
Yes, thank you. So, Nick, I love your whole story. You have amazing roots within our industry, and now you are the president and CEO of Remax LLC. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit more about yourself briefly and maybe expand a little bit on your history and kind of what led you to your current role?
Yeah, sure. Really quickly. Real estate's just a passion of mine. It has been since high school when I was a teenager. It probably started before then, but I bought 2 commercial retail buildings when I was a junior in high school at 17, and that was my first forte into real estate. And then after I graduated from high school, the summer before I went to college, I bought my first house. I decided that a down payment on a house near the college and rent out a couple of bedrooms was less than paying for a dorm.
There you go.
And that was kind of my start. And so I went to college. I ended up getting licensed while I was in college to sell real estate at 21. I've been licensed ever since. And so I was an agent. I opened a brokerage with a partner, came to Remax headquarters about 5 years after I started selling real estate, worked at headquarters about 11 and a half years in various capacities. And then they called it my sabbatical. I was gone for 7 years and worked for Trulia and Zillow, and went on to lead the C21 organization before coming back here to Remax about, it'll be 3 years ago here pretty quick. So time has flown. So it's been an interesting path in this business for sure.
I love it. I love everything that you do for Remax. You prioritize innovation and modernization in virtually every aspect of Remax LLC and real estate just in general. So can you dive deeper into some of your favorite things with respect to what you're responsible for? Like, what do you love about your job?
Yeah, it's definitely a big job. I mean, Remax has grown to its largest size that it's ever been in its nearly 50-year history, with over 143 agents spanning 110 countries. And so very, very honored and proud to lead the Remax brand. And we hit a milestone last year of selling over 2 million properties, helping 2 million buyers and sellers across the globe, more than any company's ever done. So now that I bragged about us, and it's not about me. I mean, it's bragging on the agents. They're the ones out there every day helping buyers and sellers. But I think the favorite part of my job is truly being able to look at the industry from a little bit of the front seat, but a little bit of the back seat. And what I mean by that is, I sold real estate just even in this job just recently. So I try to do a transaction here or there to make sure I stay on the front lines. But in doing so, when you're working with an agent or with a buyer or seller as an agent, you're kind of working in the now. And you're working in the now of the market. For example, during the last couple of years, multiple offers coming in for homeowners. And you have to handle the now. And I think the coolest part about my job is to make sure that I'm thinking with our leadership team about what does the next 2 years look like in the business? Not just the next 2 months, but what is the next 2 years? What's 3 years? What's 5 years? What's a fad? And really what's foundational and here to stay? And so to be able to have a seat and an influence like that comes with a lot of responsibility, but for me is super fun. Best part of what I get to do.
Oh, I can only imagine how interesting that is, and then, working with individuals who have the same goals and visions, and I love that we're going into that topic, because that's exactly where I wanna take this episode. I personally saw you at our last R4 convention in February, and I was a little bummed that I didn't get a chance to meet you in person for my first time there, but the event absolutely blew me away. I had so much fun. I remember listening to you at one of the welcoming sessions discussing the importance of a strong foundation.
Mhm.
That delivery had me on a roller coaster. I was laughing in tears, everything. Like, it was awesome. It was so good. I also remember just being like impacted by the other industry leaders as they discussed the market conditions and expectations going forward. It was such an amazing time. So today I would just love to get like an update of what's going on with real estate. We hear so much like what we all call noise in our industry, but like, what is the reality today?
The reality is people buy houses every single year.
Yes.
I mean, that's it. I think we overcomplicate our business sometimes.
Hmm.
And that's the macro. People buy houses every year, and sometimes a few more, and sometimes a few less. But people buy homes, and they will continue. And so then you look at the micro side of it, which is easy to get caught up into. And so there's the reality of the busyness of what's happening, interest rates and inflation and the world stage and the overall economy. All of those things do affect our business.
Hmm.
Absolutely, they do. Um, and what we have to do is not let any of that scare us. Because, by the way, rising interest rates, falling interest rates, rising inflation, falling, none of that scares me because I
Hmm.
know at the end of the day that people need homes. We have a shortage of homes in the range of around 4 million right now. And so the demand remains very, very high.
Absolutely.
And we've got the millennial population, which makes up 43, 44% of home buyers, that people said 5, 6 years ago, millennials wouldn't buy houses. They were just going to rent and ride an Uber. Not true. And same thing with Gen Z. Millennials and Gen Z are the two biggest populations this country has ever seen in our history. And we're now going through household formation of both generations. And
Hmm.
so the demand in front of us is going to be a lot to handle. So therefore, what we have to look at is the buyers of this year or next year may not be the same buyers of last year or the year before. It may
Right.
be a different makeup. But the reality is, I don't think the vast majority of people that buy homes um, time the market.
Yeah.
I think when I bought my first home, I didn't look back and say, well, interest rates are a little higher. They may go down in 4 months. Like, no, I had about a 90-day window or period of time that I needed to find a home to get settled in before I started going to college.
Hmm.
And my interest rate, I think, was like 6.5 or 6.75 at the time. And so what it is it's, do I have enough down? Can I afford the payment? And so it's not only about the interest rate, it's the price of the home. And in the long run, which real estate for me has been, even as a real estate owner and investor, real estate has been in the long run a very good investment. And so that's where I see that it's really important for us to ground ourselves and
Hmm.
just realize as agents, if you're an agent in this business, your goal is not to worry about all of these fluctuations. Your goal is to understand them to help a buyer or seller navigate them.
I love that point. It kind of takes me to my next question, with just continuing that conversation about noise real quick. I was recently watching your episode of Good Morning Remax. I think it was the Cinco de Mayo one where you had Jared James on there. He was talking about that importance of just breathing, holding off on emotion, not being prisoners of the moment. So, what can you say to our listeners with respect to facts over fiction? For example, some things that I could think of right now is the market's really going to crash, or do we have an inventory problem, or is inflation going to kill our industry, or cryptocurrency? Like, what can you say to all those?
People buy houses every single year. Like I back it out to that and say that's the reality of what we're living in. Now, if you want to dissect some of those, the one that's on people's mind because prices have gone like this crazy in the last couple of years, is this: are we in a bubble and is it going to burst? No. And in fact, Jared, I just saw a TikTok yesterday that Jared did and discussed this exact same thing. And he and I share in a lot of the same stats that drive some of the information that we share. One of them is this: the 35% of homes don't have a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
43 to 44% have positive equity. The average homeowner has 250,000 plus in equity. And last year alone, homeowners collectively added $3.8 trillion in equity
Wow.
to their homes. Now, are prices going to level off? Sure. Could some markets fall a little bit? Sure. But when you're looking at between 1 and 2% max are either equal or upside down in their mortgage, that means that people have a lot of equity to play with,
Mm-hmm.
whether it mean need to sell, need to buy. There's a lot of equity out there, more than it ever has been. And so that's why I don't see this being a bubble burster. Crypto, I think, is super interesting. I think a lot of it's a fad. I think when you look at blockchain and the meta universe and all of that, I think there is truly a gamification, which people love, and the fantasy land. But at the end of the day, you buy a house because you need shelter.
Right.
Now, do you want to go online and buy a fake house and fake dirt and do invest and play? And that's just fun, play, investment. We're in the business of putting roofs over heads. And so I think this will flush out, and we'll see the one or two components of it that are here and for real and will evolve just like the internet did 2 or 3 decades ago. And then I think we'll see the other parts of it that that will just be fluff, and it will be a fad.
Okay. Well, I love that. I know that you recently were also on CNBC back in April, right? And you did this great interview with factors that were driving the hot real estate market. And first, I think that it was amazing information. You did a great job. But second, maybe could you reiterate or expand on some of that information you talked about, meaning like why the industry is so competitive right now with respect to demand, pricing, or increasing rates? I mean, we saw something here locally about rates increasing yesterday, and people were kind of, losing it. So just love any aspect that you could provide.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And I believe I'll be on Fox Business on
Oh,
Tuesday too.
great.
So tune in. We'll see if I can make up some more facts then. No, just kidding. But it goes back to demand. We still have really high demand. We have short supply. That's the basis of real estate. Some of the other factors will flush out. But the other part of it too is we talk about inventory. Gosh, we're still, even though inventory is now on the rise, which we need, people think we had an inventory problem the last year or two. We did not. Newsflash, everybody. We did not have an inventory problem. We had a days on market problem. If we had an inventory problem, we would have never been able to sell 6.1 million homes, which is like the second best year in history of real estate. The inventory came up and it was there, but it was there for minutes or hours, days, if we want to get into a long period of time. And so people thought it was an inventory problem because they had to move so fast. What I think is going to happen, though, we're going to start to see inventory creep up. It's going to get a little more competitive. Buyers are going to be able to take a deep breath and be able to not have to rush out and put in a crazy offer above ask price within 30 minutes of it being listed. So we're going to get back to some level of equilibrium. It couldn't keep going in the manner that it was. Now, the folks that made money with equity and own their homes, that's awesome. And that is great for homeowners. And at the same time, you look at the amount that buyers' payments were going up when they would miss out on a property and they waited a month or 2 months. And some buyers, it took 8 to 12 months, even longer, to finally get an offer accepted. And in the meantime, prices in some of those markets went up 15, 18, 25, 28%. And then here's the other part. We are only comparing interest rates on a 30-year fixed basis.
Correct.
Right? 2 years ago, the last year, it was the 30-year fixed. And we are fixated on the fact that, oh, the 30-year fixed is here and it's going up. Slow down, folks. Do you know what has not been at the front of the market? Adjustable rate mortgages.
Absolutely.
We're going to see ARM loans come back because some people move and say, well, I may only be here 3, 5, or 7 years. I'm okay locking in for only a short period of time and taking my chance with an adjustable rate. So there will be even more competitive rates compared to the 30-year fix with alternative loan products. The other
Which
part
is exciting.
It is. It gives you options. But right now we're only comparing the 30-year fixed has done this. So all of a sudden, when we start remembering that there are alternative finance packages out there, there are HELOCs out there, which banks are saying now is like the number one product. People are wanting to use some of that equity. And so there are still factors that we're not talking about that will
Right.
be part of our market, actually are now, but we're not talking about it.
Well, and one thing that I always try to keep is perspective on a lot of things. Like even in my, younger life, I mean, I remember when I bought my first house and the interest rate was 12%. So when people are kind of spazzing out about a 6% rate, I'm over here like, hey, that's still not a bad rate. So just a few more other questions for you, Nick. What would you say to our listeners regarding the importance of using an agent now more than ever?
Number one, more consumers are using agents today than ever before. Number two, you should be using an agent. The transaction, and especially in with the market dynamics we have right now that are changing very quickly, it's good to have a trusted advisor on your side that helps you work through some of the complexities. Buying and selling a home is more complex, and it gets more complex every single day. It's more complex now than it ever has been. And so I fully believe in the trusted advisor. And you look at the data behind it that demonstrates and shows the value of using an expert is important. But not all agents are the same. The
Absolutely.
agent that sells 1 or 2 houses a year may not be as in tune with the market as someone that sells 15, 18, or 20. I like to use the doctor analogy. If you were going for open heart surgery, would you choose someone that does it once a year or someone that does it on a weekly basis? Now, granted, buying a house is not open heart surgery, not live or die, but it's generally the very biggest financial investment that most people make, and that impacts people's lives. And so why wouldn't you have a trusted advisor?
Yeah, to get you through it and to feel comfortable, make it a little less stressful. I mean, there's tons of factors that go into that. I love that advice. Um, Switching gears here for a second, we have come so far and got a new sense of comfortability with new technology going through, COVID and different things. So, thinking about technology, where do you think technology is headed with respect to real estate, and how is it going to impact our clients?
Yeah, I think what we're realizing is tech does two things. One, for the consumers, creates access to information, which it has, and it continues to do. There just continues to be more and more information that people can self-educate and do homework. People thought that that meant that it was going to replace the relevancy of an agent. Not true. It's just a great way for information exchange. So that's one thing that'll continue. Second is tech creates efficiency for agents. And let me
Mhm.
give you a real world example. Around 8 years ago, there were only about 4.5 million leads created. Online, someone requesting information to an agent. Last year, there were over 200 million leads.
Wow.
But you think of the number of properties 8 years ago that were sold were around 4.5 million. Yes, last year was 6. We'll probably be around 5.5 this year, 5.3, 5.5. And so there's a disparity in the number of leads based on the number of overall transactions. And so that's where agents need help.
Mhm.
They need the tech to do a lot of the work for them. Automation. There may be a ton of consumers out looking at information, dreaming about information, but really where I see the future of technology helping an agent is I don't believe agents today really want more leads. And when I say
Right.
that, they don't want the dump truck in the driveway just going, here you go, Kaylen. Here are 50 more leads. What they really want is the technology to be working for them and say, here is a transaction ready consumer. Here is someone that really is interested in the near term in buying and selling. And that's where I see tech going. It's where we're making our investments in tech is to make it easy for the agent on the front end, but have this big machine working on the back end with artificial intelligence and machine learning and all those complexities that non-techie people go, ooh, I don't want to deal with,
Yeah.
which they shouldn't have to. Let us deal with the hard part on the backside. Let us get this big machine going and let us say, here's someone that wants to buy or sell and someone that you need to help and reach out to and be their trusted advisor.
I'm very excited to see all that comes with the technology aspect in the future. I know that automation and making things easier and more timely is just a huge game changer for business. So I'm excited for that. Couple more, just few more, sorry. Is there any advice with all of your experience and all the seats that you've had that you would offer to agents currently in this market?
Yes. Education right now. I believe that a lot of agents over the last couple of years have rented their business and not owned it.
Ooh, I like that.
And what I mean by that is because the market has been so frenzied, a lot of agents have played a role of order taker. Stuff just flying in, order taker, and stuff flying out. And what happens in my experience of seeing market changes is you have to make sure that foundationally you understand some of the components. Here's a real world example. The number of agents 10 years ago dropped to just north of 900,000 realtors in the US. It hit an all-time high last year of 1.6. A lot of people have gotten a license in the last 2 or 3 years. They've only known this market. There are hundreds of thousands of agents that have never held a listing more than 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you price it differently. You set up the conversation with your homeowner differently. You market it differently. A home that sits on the market on average 2 to 3 weeks as compared to 3 or 4 months, you handle that differently. You stage it differently. It's amazing the nuances. And it reminds me of exactly like when agents were dealing with multiple offers.
Mm-hmm.
You had to handle multiple offers very different than when you got one at a time. And so I think people have to make sure that they understand the fundamentals of what's happening in the market, what it means, understand it, be able to translate it to your clients, and then also know how you may need to work differently in different market conditions. The agents that figure that out will not only, they won't rent their business, they will own their business. They'll be here to survive and they'll be able to grow as a result. I've
Well, I
seen.
think Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that is solid advice. I know in a lot of my experience with my position with our brokerage, I spend a lot of time training, and part of that aspect is teaching them to build their business and that foundation to withstand any market condition, and that's something that not a lot of people know when they get into the industry. So such solid advice.
And it sounds too easy, right? Sounds too
Hmm.
easy to be true. But it's amazing when you look at, for example, having a database. We talk about tech. Have all your contacts in a database. Let that database really work your contacts for buyers and sellers. But more agents than not don't use a data. They don't use a CRM. They don't use a database. They use sticky notes and an iPhone and have contacts flying around. And so even just a little bit of organization around your database makes all the difference in the world of how you can survive or thrive in this business. So some of those core basic fundamentals that sound easy, but they require just a little bit of discipline.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because me and my brokers, we get so passionate about database. I mean, I feel like I drill database, all the time, and when I explain it to new people, I'm like, guys, it's legit the book of business. They're just like mind blown. So
You're right. You are right on. And absolutely keep pounding that into them because it truly, really, really is important. And I hear agents all the time in this world of data. My data, my data, my data. I tell agents all the time, stop worrying about data and worry about your database. Because
love
the
it.
minute you do that, those are your clients. And I'll tell you a quick story. I think the most heart-wrenching thing as an agent, and it happened to me, guilty, Your Honor, is I sold somebody a house. 2 years later, I'm driving down the same street and there's a for sale sign in front of my client's house that I sold with somebody else's name on it.
Mm,
And the reality is it's because I didn't work my database, keep in touch how I should have, and make sure that when they thought about selling, that they came to me.
mm-hmm.
And that
Staying top
happens.
of mind.
94% of buyers at the closing table would use their agent again. Only 13% do. And it's
Wow.
not because our buyers are crazy. It's because we're not really good at keeping in touch with them.
Mm-hmm. Totally
Um,
agree.
and so there's free business out of your own database that if people would just work it, they could have a dozen transactions a year with their eyes closed.
Well, I appreciate that advice. I know that a lot of our agents are dying to, hear what you have to say in this episode. I want to circle back to you just for our last question, kind of some rapid fire. And I love asking every single guest on our show these questions. So,
Okay,
first
I
one,
don't know what they are. Why am I nervous all of a sudden?
don't be nervous. These
Okay,
are really, really good. Okay, first one, where is an area of growth that you want to experience in either your personal or professional life?
Personal. So I grew up playing the saxophone. It's how I met my wife. We started dating in eighth grade. So we met in band. Yeah,
Aw,
we're band nerds. Come on.
love it.
Um, I want to learn to play the guitar.
Ooh, yeah.
Right? You bring it out at the holidays, like you're the coolest guy at the party. So personal development. That's on my goal sheet for the next year.
Oh, I love that goal. I'm sure you'll get extra brownie points with your wife too, because who doesn't love a guy with a guitar, right?
That's the goal. That's the
There you go.
goal.
Okay, next one. In what area do you feel you are currently thriving?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's a hard question.
Mhm.
Personally or professionally?
Either one.
Okay, where am I thriving? I I would hope to think that people would say, if you asked other people instead of me, that I'm thriving at hopefully making the network proud to be, a good leader, a good solid leader that people can relate to, understand, and put their faith to help them know where we're going in the future. So I guess maybe I hope I'm thriving in, and I think I am in trying to connect with our network, be super available. I try to do as many of these as I can. Um, I think I'm thriving in that area, but I hope other people think I am too.
Yeah, you definitely are, in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of all that you do. It inspires me to do this show. So, and that's my last one. What inspires you?
Um, People that get excited about something. Like I can tell you love this. I love your logo, Grive, Throw, Inspire podcast. Like you put thought into it. It's well done. But I can, through a camera, and I can feel your passion come through on it. And I use the word passion a lot. But when I see somebody get excited, no matter what they do, it's great. I just met someone. I'm building a house. Crazy. Good timing, right? With
Yeah,
the labor
great.
constraints. I met a guy running the excavation machine. And I have never seen a guy so excited to run a large piece of equipment. I asked him if I could get in and do a couple of scoops. The answer was negative. Um, but no matter what you do, when you see someone get excited that they love what they're doing, it makes me excited.
Hmm.
But I'm easily excitable.
Me too. Me too. Well, Grow, Thrive, Inspire listeners, we could not be more thankful to Nick for coming on our show and providing us with great information about himself, the market, and all that we're experiencing. Nick, next time I am at a live event with you, I plan to walk on up this time and give you a hug. You are so awesome and an amazing leader. I'm a little jealous that you're besties with Jared James, but I
Oh,
won't
don't
hold
be.
that against you.
Don't be. He's overrated. No, I'm just kidding. I'm hoping that he might see this because anytime he and I can give each other a jab on these things when the other one's not there to respond, we love it. But
Send it
uh,
to him.
he is one of the best.
Well, we have more episodes coming, so be sure to tune back in on Wednesdays and like and subscribe to all of our pages for the latest updates. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or 89.3 Key FM here in Osage Beach locally. And remember to always grow, thrive, and inspire, and we'll catch you next time.